Hello again, you're watching Everard Junction, and today is part 11 of building the new scene on the layout. And today I've decided that I'm going to start actually weathering the track. Progress on this area is a little slow at the moment. It's taking me a while to get the videos done and actually make progress, and it's going to be like that for a little while to come. I'm working 6 days a week at the moment, and I'm getting home reasonably late. So basically I'm very limited with the time I have on the layout. At best I can get 1 day per week, but most of the time it's a morning or an afternoon. So I'm kind of slowed on progress at the moment, but work is taking over at the moment. Weathering the track, in my opinion, is one of the best things you can do after you've ballasted. It makes the whole thing look much more realistic. You can see here where I've laid the new sections that are so far not weathered, how they contrast with the previously weathered sections of track. You can see how pristine they look. So I'm going to be using my trusty airbrush and two basic colours. They're both made by Railmatch. The one I used most of all is Sleeper Grime. That gets a real nice coat on the track, it gets that real used appearance. And then I highlight some of the areas with Roof Dirt, which is an altogether much darker colour, to represent some areas where grease and oil has been spilt. And in some areas I'll even go as far as actually spraying a little bit of black, just to get that oily effect. So I'll be spraying everything in here as well. The areas in here will also be done, not to quite the same extent, but they will also get a weathering. Traffic in and out of these areas is going to be rather much slower than it would be out on the main line. So here I'm going to focus on sort of a couple of spills and things, but not too much, because it's predominantly coaching stock and DMUs that are stored in here. Locomotives are not. So let's get started. Now, spraying the enamels up here is going to smell quite unpleasant, and there are going to be a reasonable amount of fumes. So I have a mask that I'll be wearing, and I'm also got some gloves that I've liberated from work. Occasionally I do actually get through a day without covering a pair of these in grease and oil, so when that happens I bring them home and put them to use when I'm painting on the layout. So wear a mask, wear some gloves, try and work reasonably quickly, and then once I'm happy with the paint and I've got everywhere done, I might not do the whole thing, I might do it in stages, we'll see how it goes. But once I've got the paint down and it's starting to dry, I'll tidy up, clean the airbrush, leave, and I'll leave the whole area on its own to vent for at least a day. So the paint dries and the fumes are gone, there's no danger to my health. Next thing that some of you will need to do, which I showed in a previous video, is if your points are not electrofrog and they're not electrified from underneath, then you are going to need to protect the rails where they contact from paint. Otherwise your trains are not going to work properly. Easiest way to do that, get a piece of blue tack and splodge it across the area. Make sure you're generous and push it right down between the rails, and then when the paint's dry, peel it off, and you can touch in the areas by hand where you think you can get away with it, just to make things look a little bit better. But yeah, very important that you use the blue tack if you require it, otherwise your trains aren't going to work very well. As I've said before, on this layout it's all electrofrog, it's all electrified from underneath with the point motors, so I can get away with it, so I won't be using any blue tack.
Okay, so the sleeper grime has now completely dried. I've given it plenty of time and it's looking good, but at the moment everything is just a little bit too brown, a little bit too uniform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some greys in, which will just darken things down a little bit and add some areas of variation. To do that, I'll be using Rail Match Roof Dirt number 403, and it will just take the edge off some of the brown. I'm just going to give a light dusting over certain bits, and then in some other areas, like on points and things, I will put it on a little bit more heavily. But you can see where it's been used on older bits of track. So there we go. That's the basic base weathering done. I was heavier with the roof dirt in the fueling area just to make it a bit dirtier, a bit more oily. But there's still more effects to be added. At the moment I'm just going to let it dry and see how things look. And of course I need to weather inside the cleaning and storage areas. This will be done with sleeper grime and roof dirt again. And you could, if you wanted to, take the decking out, but to be honest I haven't finished painting it and I want some level of weathering actually on the decking. So a little bit of overspray on the edges is actually going to look quite good, I think. So we'll see how it goes. You can see the contrast between unweathered track and weathered track. In my opinion, it really does make a huge difference to the overall appearance of the layout, and it's one of the best things you can do. I still need to clean the paint off the surface of the rails so that the trains will work again. That'll be done when the paint has dried. You can do it when it's wet, but it doesn't rub off as easily, it just sort of smears around. So I tend to wait for it to dry until I do that. Okay, so finally the paint has dried off, and I can now work up here again. So the next thing to do is to get rid of all of the overspray on the tops of the rails. To do that, I'm just going to use an ordinary track rubber. I don't use these for cleaning the track. I use a proper track cleaning wagon, but for scraping off the dried paint, this proves perfectly adequate. Just rub lightly at the surface and try not to scratch any of the rails.
Okay, I've cleaned all the excess paint off the surface of the rails and given everything a clean with the CMX track cleaner just to make sure. So you can see how much of a difference actually that does make. You get a little bit of a shine back where you should have it, and the rest of the track remains weathered. I will be adding some more effects in the fuel point. I want to get some ground cover going around here and work out what I'm doing over here and see how things look before I commit to making everything really filthy. I've done the same around here on the main lines, and you can see now that the new point work and the new sections of track blend in to the rest of it, and it looks like I never even dug any of it up. Okay, so before I finish up the video and move on to the next bit for part 12, I am going to go around and just start doing a few loose ends on the scenery side of things. I'd like to continue this round. We've also got an area over here that needs sorting out, and there's just bits of it that just need to be continued. Some needs to go on the other side of that cable trunking, various things like that. Also need to do that corner.
Okay, so that's a few bits of scenery sorted out. I've started off the scenery in that corner. Still lots more to add, but it's all drying at the moment, so I'll leave that for now. So in the next part I'll be moving further into the yard. I'm going to start working out what I'm going to be doing along this section here. So that'll come in the next video, and I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.